All About Data podcast. This is our third episode, and we're so excited to talk about this hot topic today. It's one that's been on our minds, and I'm sure a lot of other people. With all the layoffs that are happening in the industry, some are getting nervous and wondering if data science is still a job angle to pursue or not. And so, being data professionals ourselves, we thought we'd share some of our insights and our opinions with you. So I'm Dr. Iwona, and this is...
And I am Jelly.
And so today we are going to talk all about the data science or data professionals job market. And so we're going to start off right away with the first question. And so Jelly, what does the growth in the data roles in the job market look like currently?
So, as Dr. Yona mentioned, this is going to be all about data professionals, right? We have experience in data analytics as well as data science. And of course, data engineering is also a hot role. So with data analysts, according to Noble Desktop in 2022, over half of the businesses viewed data analytics as a core competency for all of their business operations. So that goes to show you that a lot of businesses still feel that the skill of analytics is in need. That same source also says that the market is growing, right, as far as revenue. So by 2026, the data analytics market will be worth about $133 billion, right? With a B. Billions with a B. So outside of data analysts, let's move down to data scientists and talk about that U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So they predict growth within data science field by 2026, 28%. So it's going to grow about 28% with a variety of roles, a variety of opportunities that are still going to be available. And it's still going to be one of the top 3 positions in the United States. So Absolutely. Data scientists are still much in demand. And then when we look at data engineering with Zipita, we see that some projected growth of data engineers by 21% from 2018 all the way to 2028. And there are over 300,000 active data engineer job openings in the U.S. alone. Currently. So this shows that there is a lot of need for data professional roles in the industry still.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, since we know that these actual data professional roles are in need, Dr. Iwona, let's talk about some in-demand roles and responsibilities that one must take on in order to acquire one of these roles.
And making sure that you are keeping your training and your certifications up to date. That's going to be very important. So you want to kind of get an idea of all of the areas that are out there and see which one appeals to you, which one you find that it's compatible with your background, your previous experience, or maybe it might be something that's new and interesting to you that you might find exciting, that you want to learn more about. And we're going to talk some more about the specializations available, whether it's cloud computing or AI certification. But you want to think about some specialization as you try to make yourself more marketable in this industry.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I want to really focus on what Dr. Iwona just said when it came to keeping your skills up to date and the technologies that are changing and coming out every day, if not every minute, it feels like, right? That I get this question a lot with me having a master's in analytics, and of course Dr. Iwona having a doctorate degree in the STEM field as well. Do we need a master's, right? And so notice that she said certifications and continuing education. There are a lot of e-learning platforms out here. We mentioned this in our last episode when it comes to Data Camp and LinkedIn Learning and Coursera, right? There are some great platforms out there.
We're also making sure that we keep abreast. Like, how many courses have you done in LinkedIn Learning?
I signed up for LinkedIn Learning in 1 month, y'all, and I did like 25 courses. Yes. So shout out to LinkedIn Learning.
Real.
So So I'm constantly, when somebody publishes a new course that has a different mindset, a different thought, I'm like, oh, let me research it. And you can also build portfolios, things of that nature.
Yes.
So no, a master's or a doctorate degree is not needed.
Because I'm still doing Google Analytics as well as the cloud computing and getting those certifications. So we're keeping abreast. So we're not just saying this, we're walking the talk.
Yes, so making sure that you're upskilling and make time for continuing education is definitely going to be important when carrying out any roles and responsibilities.
Yes. So when it comes to, now we talked about some of these, different ways that we can keep abreast of the market. What are some of the skills that are actually important as we pursue these roles, these data roles?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk first about, I guess, the forgotten skills a lot, because when data professionals love to kind of have conversations about the technical skills, and they forget about those professional soft skills, right? So the professional skills, maybe you have called them soft skills. We talked about one of those important skills in our last podcast, which was data literacy, and that's across any role, right? But especially as a data professional, we would argue you would need to be a little bit more data literate than people that are in non-data roles. So having data literacy, there has been some good conversations around data storytelling, right? Can you actually tell a story that's going to drive business value after you do your analytics, right? Definitely explaining technical findings to non-technical audiences, right? So can you speak the non-technical jargon even from something that's highly technical? Are you talking about the whole neural nets and the batch size and the cycles and the classification, all that good stuff? So being able to talk to multiple audiences.
And that's something we both kind of share, and we take pride in that we do have the ability to share some of this technical stuff to a non-technical audience.
Yeah, break it down. Can you break it down, right? And then critical and creative thinking, right? So I think a lot of people have been talking about the chat GPTs that have been coming out, right? And then one of the cons of that is that it lacks certain creativity, right? It's going to generate, taglines that aren't really all that creative, right? Or they're going to be redundant. So do you have the ability to now become this creative and critical thinker?
Right.
That is very important in the field, as well as collaboration, right? Because it's going to take a big team to do some of these data projects, right? So collaboration skills along with the domain expertise. So as Dr. Yuona mentioned in the last question, with the specialization, if you want to be a financial analyst or work in the healthcare space, or you want to work in the sports analytics space, right? Do you have that domain expertise that's really going to add an extra layer of value to your data? So outside of that, with those professional skills, Dr. Yuona, let's talk about some of those less forgotten skills, which is technical skills.
Right. So when it comes to the technical skills, there are some things that are fundamental that you must have in order to be competitive in this data science space or data analytics space, right? So of course, a programming language, that is first and foremost. And now there's so many resources out there that you can learn, Python or Rust or R or whatever the programming language of your choice is. There are so many resources that you can try. Then also learning about data processing and data transformation. And then thirdly, SQL. This is huge in the data science market. Almost every data science is required to have some knowledge of SQL, how to manipulate, how to extract, and how to transform and load the data before you can even do the data analytics on it. And now the big thing that's the buzzword is cloud computing, which is why I am now also getting certification in that area, because you will learn that it's predicted by this year alone that almost 40% of all enterprise workload will be deployed in the cloud. So that's critical to have that understanding.
And that's a great statistic by Gartner that 40% of those you need some cloud knowledge, right? The model means nothing if you can't put it in the hands of the client, right? So model deployment that's going to be facilitated by cloud computing is very, very important. And so those are some general technical skills. It's always good to research the actual data professional role that you're interested in, whether it's a business intelligence analyst, whether it is data analyst, data science, data engineering. engineering to really look at those demand skills, right? Should you focus on Python or should you focus on another coding language? I will say that Python is taught a lot in a lot of the data science and data analyst boot camps, just because it has some great libraries in there, but it's not necessarily in the industry as much as we think it is, and we're going to talk about that. But we also, if you're going to data science, you need to have some modeling knowledge, right, of the machine learning, of the artificial intelligence, of things such as NLP and time series and some of those great models that we have out there.
Right.
So now, since we have an overview of some of the professional and technical skills that may be needed, let's talk about the money.
The money.
People tend to go in, you know, where the money resides, right? Where that money resides. So, what are some of the salaries and compensation trends that we see, Dr. Iona, for these data professional roles?
Median for a data scientist is, this was reported in 2020, $164,500. And so that is way above, you know, what the average American is earning. And so those salaries are very high, and just even for those starting out for data scientists, it's about 125,000. And then if you go up to the data science manager and beyond, they are earning, you know, 250, sometimes as much as $300,000 a year. So we have data scientists earning as much as surgeons in the hospital. So it's a lucrative field. But there are other areas of data science, and of course for the data analytics, that their earnings average somewhere between 65 to 72,000, depending on the role, depending on the experience, depending on the background. But for the data engineers, their average salary is around $109,675. And so you always want to do your market research about the role that you're interested in, that you're applying for, because invariably they'll be asking you, so what are your salary expectations, right? And you want to make sure that you are able to answer that question intelligently and
answer that question using the data.
Right, data, exactly.
Data
that's
literacy.
important.
Right.
Yeah,
So that you can have a great range, right? That, like Dr. Iona says, suits the actual role, your education, your geographic location, right? There's a lot of things that play into salary, right? So don't use these numbers as, oh my God, I can get almost $165,000 for being a data scientist, right? It's all like, do you have the qualifications? Do you have the year of experience? Do you have the education? Where are you located geographically? All of those play a part in the actual salary range. So definitely let the data drive, since these are just some average salaries across, especially the United States, where cost of living is not necessarily as factored in. Other benefits and work-life balance that you may like for your role is also not factored in, right? So take these numbers with a grain of salt. However, we will say that outside of a normal or average U.S. income, it does double, triple, if not quadruple the income. So they are very lucrative careers.
Yes, but I just thought that if we thought of the salary as the outcome variable, there are a lot of features that would go into making a prediction.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah, so we talked about salary. Of course, that's a big thing, and that's, you know, fundamental, most important. But now you're probably thinking, that sounds well and good, but how would I go about, you know, getting into that field? And what are some of the challenges and obstacles that I may face in trying to become a data scientist or a data analyst?
Yeah, and so since our first episode was on data bias, we don't want to have a really biased podcast and telling you all the great things that go on in the data professional world, because there's also some not so great things that go on, right? So we want to paint both pictures. So some challenges that you may face is at the organization level, and Dr. Iona and I both have experienced this throughout our career trajectory, that some companies are just not as prepared for data science hiring and data science projects, right?
Yes.
Some of you want to go out and make the best neural net, right? But the reality is that data science company may just be in Excel looking at regression, or maybe even before regression, a t-test. And that's why we're going to talk about statistical literacy, right? So some of these companies are just not ready for those hot and sexy terms of machine learning and AI. And a good piece of that, as Dr. Yona mentioned in our last episode, is because they lack that data strategy, right, Dr. Yona?
Yes, that is so critical. So they don't have a strategy. They just know that data science is interesting and exciting, and they know that other companies are doing it, and so they want to do it too, and so they hire, the professionals without really having a roadmap for them to follow to accomplish all that can be accomplished with the data.
Exactly. So you may have your heart set on a certain startup company, but they're not yet ready for data science. But that doesn't mean that you can gain a role as like a data advocate or a data steward to kind of help them start making data-driven decisions and figuring out what their baseline literacy is, right? So that's one challenge. Outside of that, new professionals into the field experience a learning curve, okay? A lot of industry roles and responsibilities vary greatly from what you're taught in the academic setting, right? So a lot of the boot camps, a lot of even the master's programs, as well as some of the e-learning platforms rely on these Jupyter notebooks, right? And a lot of them are locally based notebooks. You can imagine that it's hard to collaborate with locally based notebooks and that they're not really in the industry as much as one may think, right? Instead, they have the whole VS Code and the GitHub Copilot and things that really help them for deployment and scaling, right? So the learning curve tends to be somewhat steep when you're going into the industry. We recommend that outside of the academic setting, you do your own upskilling, as we mentioned, right?
Always.
Take some of these courses on VS Code and the cloud computing of Azure to know how things are being deployed, or machine learning flow through AWS, so you really can actually prepare for what the industry is, because a lot of your academic projects are going to be static data sets. Of course, we know that a lot of data needs to be real time, right? So it may be a steep learning curve when you go actually into
and that's why having your own outside projects or hobbies as far as data science is concerned will allow you to develop the skills that you may not be able to get inside of the company. So doing the sports analytics or anything else that you might be interested in, there's tons of data out there that you can use for your own portfolio. And I also want to mention that when it comes to the job market, yes, some of these larger companies are slowing their hiring or even halting it, but the data professional roles are growing in other industry. For example, in the healthcare industry, in the finance, in agriculture, in education, all of these fields, they're hiring more and more data professionals. So you want to explore some of those fields and even prepare yourself as a data professional to meet the demands outside of the traditional multi-billion-dollar tech company.
Yeah, and even in the data for good and nonprofit space, I know a lot of people are interested in some things such as pollution and world hunger, and how data roles can help solve those issues. And that's mostly a time grant funded as well. Of course, you have to keep extending the contract, but those are some good projects to kind of get your hands wet as well. So outside of that learning curve, their job descriptions out here may be unclear on exactly what the company is looking for, and they may even mistitle the role, right? And a way to get around that, if you are asked for an interview, you need to ask the right questions, right? What tools is this role utilizing? Do you utilize SQL? Do you utilize Python? Are you really expecting someone to do modeling or data visualization? Or do you want somebody to actually build out the entire database and the infrastructure? Do you even have the infrastructure, right? And are you really looking for an IT analyst, or
Yeah.
are you really looking for a data analyst, right? So HR can do their part as well if you advocate in your organization to really give them the information of what you do on a day-to-day,
Yes.
so that they can work alongside data professionals to really make their job descriptions and roles and responsibilities very clear, right? So that's another challenge. It's kind of filtering through all of those job descriptions and responsibilities to figure out what a company may want, right? So Dr. Yona already mentioned another challenge is the rapid change of tools and skills, right? So it's changing every day, if not every minute, right? So keeping up with those skills can be challenging to actually carve out that time. We all have lives, right? And so we actually need to carve out time to keep up with those new tools and technology, to stay ahead of the curve and just make yourself more marketable in the industry as well.
Yeah. And also, just for your own upskilling, maybe you have, goals and dreams that you should not be limited by a company. You are in charge of it's you Inc. that you incorporated, right? And so nowadays it's more about what you want to accomplish short term and long term, and that helps guide you in terms of what you do.
Yeah, because now with the creativity and the domain expertise, especially things with generative AI on the scene, employers are going to start looking at that more and more and more, and not just the actual code scripts that you can write, right? So making sure that you are staying afloat on your soft skills, and also being aware that if you do gain one of these data professional roles, depending on your organization, we kind of see some limited collaboration among tech professionals to help on these data projects, right? So software engineers a lot of time are needed, security analysts to keep the data secure, project managers, right, to help be that liaison between clients, an actual data engineer, and also a data scientist, especially when we talk about things like DevOps and ML ops, right? And so this limited collaboration, and this is a part of the company culture, right? Because company cultures can facilitate more collaboration. May pose an actual challenge for you, especially being a beginner in the role. So try to seek out to have donut or coffee chats with people on your team and on other teams, so that you get a clear sense of who can actually support you on some of your data science projects.
Yeah, and there might be local organizations that you can join, or maybe online you can become a part of, so that you can have a more rounding of your skill set, right? So you're not limited to what is available at the company that you work with.
Exactly. So with that being said, so those are some challenges. So that's us not being biased, giving you a little bit of the great news about data professional roles, and giving you some of the challenges that you may face, right? So outside of that kind of wraps up our data roles. So now let's talk about our own personal advice. So Dr. Yona, what general advice would you give graduates or those just trying to enter the market?
When you go to the interview, you ask specific questions, such as what will the day-to-day role look like, for this position. You want to get clarity around that, because we've seen job description where they're expecting a unicorn, right? We've seen those. They want someone to be the data scientist, the data engineer, the data analyst, and the business intelligence person all in one role. And so you don't want to get caught in that trap. The other thing is that there are lots of jobs that are not advertised, right? And so that's why it's important to be a part of a network, to be a part of a community, because many times there are roles that get filled before they even get posted. So if you are in the know, if you're connected with a lot of these people, they can reach out to you or connect you with the people that can help you. So you also want to have your own strategy when it comes to searching for jobs. Don't just apply randomly, choose specifically, hone in on the jobs that you want. Look at the skills that are required and make sure that you're developing yourself in that area to meet those roles. So have a strategy when it comes to the job that you're trying to find. And of course, as we mentioned, staying up to date. These technology, the tools are changing so very rapidly. And the other thing I want to admonish is to not focus so much on applying for hundreds of jobs, but also promoting yourself and showing what you can do, putting your work out there, having a portfolio of projects that you have done, talking about data science, having your blog or podcast like we do. All of that is then showing potential employers that you are more than just what is written on a resume. So when they see that you actually hands-on, you can do the data science, you can do the projects, and you can talk about it or write about it, then they are more likely to actually reach out to you and make you an offer.
Yeah, as Dr. Yona said, me and her are networking all the time. So attend some of these conferences. There's a lot of free virtual conferences. We just went to about 2 or 3 in the last month, right? So stay in the know on LinkedIn and just search up conferences and workshops and webinars so that you can increase that networking, because as she mentions, it's a lot of who you know at times as well. And that's not just for data roles, that's for jobs in general, right? It's about who you know. So let's just recap some of the main important takeaways. I also want to mention with the job and advice, I'm loving these resume dashboards. So if you can turn your resume into a dashboard, and you know that you want to go into a role that has data visualization,
it's a
do it.
Opportunity.
I am loving that. And then you can definitely showcase that with a story. And so then you have that storytelling too, because a data visualization on its own isn't a story, but you're going to have that data visual to the story that you're about to tell. That's awesome. So anytime when you can incorporate data in your job search, do that.
Yeah. I just want to share that in the last conference we attended, one of the young ladies talked about how she got a job at the UN because she became part of the Tableau community, and she would just, do some of the projects and share it with the group, and Tableau would feature some of the better projects at the end of the week or whatever, and hers was one of those featured, and somebody at the UN came across her project and they called her up and asked her if she wants to come work with the UN. And
so that right there is awesome. If you can add data in your everyday life, right? So this is our perspective as well as some sources on how the data professional job market is growing. In summary, we would say do not be alarmed, right? The economy shifts, right? Jobs do shift, right? But it always opens up for more jobs, and it's buoyant, right? It's going to always bounce back and forth, right? So don't be afraid of what you see, what's going on in the market, because a lot of the data roles are still in need, and there's tons of openings out here. There's tons of projected growth, right? So don't be alarmed.
Yeah, if Netflix is still generating $100 billion with their recommendation system, you know that data science is not going anywhere. And now with AI, OpenAI and ChatGPT generating billions of dollars in revenue for all of these companies, data science is going to be around for a while.
And chat and these open AIs, were built by humans, right? So don't be like a robot is taking over. It's not going to take over. It's a tool, just like Excel is a tool, just like Python is a tool that's going to work alongside you to help facilitate creative thinking, as well as help you with your code syntax as well. But it's not going to, there's a lot of drawbacks from that. So we're going to talk about generative AI in another episode. Thanks, everyone. So that was our 3rd episode about data professional roles. We were having such a great conversation that we decided to continue it to next week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you all. Bye-bye.